Number 2 story was another gal, as it happens, who also had been abused as a child, and she'd grown up outside the church in this case, and she met a guy in high school who was a member and converted to the church and waited there a year and got married in the temple. And she's raising 4 or 5 little boys. But she confessed to me that she was a good thing the Lord gave her boys because she couldn't handle a little girl. And I said, what do you mean? Because she had an alcoholic father who was abusive and a mother who was neurotically ill all the time and never did anything. Or she was really mothered her father and her mother and was abused and neglected in the process. And she felt some bitterness about it. She said she couldn't stand to sit in church and see some little girl being loved and hugged by her daddy and treated like she was somebody, because she'd never had that. And she said she just had to get up and leave. She said she couldn't have stood to have a little girl of her own and see her own husband hug and fondle that little girl in an appropriate way, because she would get so envious and so jealous that she never had that. And she would say to God, what is there about that little girl that was righteous enough that she was born into a family where somebody loved her and held her and cared for her and honored her and made her feel like somebody? And what was I so terrible that I didn't have any of that, that I was neglected and abused and treated like I was nothing? She used a stronger word. And I think that, and she said, well, can you tell me the answer? You know, people think the stake presidents ought to be able to defend God. But I felt an inspiration to tell her something that was that it was of infinite value to me. I said, and I knew by revelation, I knew it was true for her, and I have since found it and believe it to be true for many in this congregation, and perhaps even in some small degree for myself. I said, you came to this life with the highest calling that there is, higher than a bishop or a stake president or a prophet. You came as a savior on Mount Zion. She said, what, you mean genealogy? I said, no. It might include that. I mean someone who was called upon to suffer innocently that others might not suffer. She said, what are you talking about? I said, I believe by inspiration that you covenanted before you came to this life to take on a savior-like mission, to go into a family that for generations had been full of evil and wickedness and violence and sin, exploitation and worse, and to purify that lineage, to absorb all of that poison and to metabolize it and to pass on none of it. But downstream from you in that lineage to have purity and righteousness and love and the gospel of Jesus Christ. That you would suffer therefore innocently as a child in the hands of foul and evil people, but that your children would not so suffer. You would break the link. You would be a savior on Mount Zion, because that's what the Savior did. He suffered innocently that others might not suffer. And all downstream for you to the last generation of time, generations will call you blessed because you absorbed the poison and refused to pass it on.